Hello, everyone, and welcome to Police Off the Cuff Real Crime Stories. I'm your host, Bill Cannon. I'm a retired NYPD sergeant. And with me today, straight out of Brooklyn, retired NYPD detective Phil Grimaldi. How you doing today, Phil?
I'm doing pretty good, Billy. How about you?
Not bad. We're going to do this recap on this really sad case that's been covered a lot. I covered it early on when it occurred in December 21st, 2020 with Duty Ron. And I followed it ever since, and we were hoping for a positive conclusion to this, but we're going to get to what's been going on with the case, and we'll be back in a minute.
It's a show with two retired detectives that were in the thick of New York crime, fast and hectic. They got some stories and some jokes, even an interview with the most popular folks. Off the cuff, one episode just ain't enough. Get a little laughter and an interview too. It's maybe the best thing you can do.
Here we are back. We were told yesterday by Bakersfield, California District Attorney Cynthia Zimmer in a press conference that Orrin and Orson West, who were reported missing in December, I believe it was December 21st, 2020, they are now officially declared deceased. And we were told that yesterday in a press conference by District Attorney Zimmer. And I think she spoke pretty damn well. I mean, she's a straightforward person, and I mean, she exudes confidence. And I want to play a little bit of that press conference because it says it much better than we could ever say it. And I'm going to put it on the screen right now, and then we'll play it.
The community also came out to assist in looking for the boys, but to no avail. They were not located. 1 week later, crucial information came to light that necessitated the involvement of the Bakersfield Police Department and the Kern County District Attorney's Office. Law enforcement worked diligently, hundreds of hours in the next 12 months, looking for the boys. This morning, I'm saddened to announce that the investigation has revealed that Orrin and Orson West are deceased. The investigation has also revealed that they died 3 months before their adoptive parents reported them missing. However, I am pleased to announce that this week, the Kern County Grand Jury indicted Trezell and Jacqueline West, the adoptive parents, for the murder of Orrin and Orson West. The indictment charges 5 counts. The first count is murder, charges them both with murder, with the victim being Orrin West. The second count charges murder, with the victim being Orson West. The third count charges felony child abuse against the person of Orrin West. The fourth count charges child abuse against the person of Orson West. And the fifth count charges false report of an emergency. Naturally, the first 2 counts carry the most time in state prison, murder. It is charged as murder in the second degree. That carries 15 years to life. But with 2 victims, the potential penalty or the maximum possible penalty, if convicted, is 30 years to life for each defendant, Trezell and Jacqueline West. Now, the grand jury indictment is a formal charging document, and we followed a process in charging them before the grand jury, and that was the district attorney requested that the grand jury convene to hear evidence regarding an indictment that we presented them. The district attorney's office then presented information to the grand jury, and the grand jury found there was sufficient evidence to hold Trezell and Jacqueline West responsible for these murders, and they returned what was called a true bill. So oftentimes we call it they were indicted, but what they did is returned a true bill on the indictment. Department 1 Superior Court judge issued warrants for the arrest of the defendants, and they were arrested last night at about 7 p.m. in Kern County. They are currently in the Kern County Jail waiting for an arraignment on the indictment, which will be tomorrow. There will be no preliminary hearing in this case because an indictment is a substitute for a preliminary hearing, and this case will proceed directly to trial. The announcement of an indictment in this case probably raises a lot of questions about the facts of the case and what you and the public would like to know. I'm not permitted to go over the facts of the case in this case, but there is something that I'd like to discuss because the facts of the case are to be what we produce in the jury trial, because we want both the prosecution and the defense to have a fair trial in this case. However, one of the questions that I'm sure you would like to know is, have the bodies of Orrin and Orson been found? And the answer to that is no, they have not been found. However, I would like to emphasize that the fact that law enforcement have not found their bodies does not preclude a murder prosecution. As a matter of fact, there have been many hundreds of what we call no-body homicides prosecuted across the United States successfully, and even no-body homicides have resulted in murder convictions in Kern County. I'd like to introduce the people who are standing.
Well, folks, there you have it. I mean, I think that the district attorney, Cynthia Zimmer, really gave a clear, concise report on up to date what's going on. And she later on was stayed to answer questions. However, she refused to answer any questions that gave any facts of this case up to the press because, as you know, anything that goes out there is discovery material. And if she starts talking about the facts of the case, the defense can actually call her as a witness for saying this in a public forum. So she wasn't asking questions. Answering questions. Let's just go back to, when they were reported missing, the whole story was not very believable. But it's so easy to look at people and read their body language and say, oh, they're lying, this, that, and the other thing. But you still have to come up with the facts. You have to dissect the facts. You have to do a thorough investigation. And days or a week after they reported Orrin and Orson West missing, their other kids were removed. And that is probably when they got this smoking gun information that, in fact, this just was not a missing person. And the story that Trezell and Jacqueline West told was not believable. How heartbreaking to everyone that over the last 16 months was praying that these two boys would be found alive. When all those in law enforcement that worked on this case knew for a fact that they were not. Philly, comments?
Yeah, first off, I'd like to just give a salute and a tip of the hat to that district attorney, the Bakersfield Police Department, and especially Duty Ron, who has really covered this case right from the beginning. I know he raised money for a billboard. He put a lot of effort and work into this case. Listen, the police department's getting paid for it. The district attorney's also getting paid. Duty Ron wasn't. He went out of his way to raise money, and I just want to mention it. I think that says a lot about his character. I'm very impressed with the district attorney in this case. She seems very competent. She seemed very confident, and I am in 100% agreement with the facts that she laid out. Sometimes these cases do take long. Even though no body was recovered, she was very specific in the fact that she said that will not preclude a murder prosecution. As we know, it's difficult to proceed with murder charges, not impossible in cases like that. We've talked about it, especially in organized crime cases with Detective Tommy Dades, where they've successfully prosecuted people for the murder of individuals that their bodies and their remains were never recovered. That may well be the case in this case, but I think that enough investigation has gone into this investigation where they gotten to the point where they, as she said in the press conference, they voted a true bill in the indictment. There's probably a ton of information that was garnered when those other children who were in the home were removed. I'm sure it was a painstaking, very delicate situation to question them and to ask them about the whereabouts of little Orrin and Orson, 3 and 4-year-old kids that were placed in the care of these two savages. There was one thing I wanted to bring out, Billy. I read online. She didn't mention it in the press conference, but in the court documents, it said that there was great violence, threat of great bodily harm, or other acts that disclose a high degree of cruelty and viciousness. These are very, very strong terms, and it turned my stomach to read this. And this is another part of it that said, and I think it refers to the other children, also induced others to participate in the commission of the crime. I mean, we have really depraved individuals, and I just hope that there's enough of a hammer that comes down on them with the criminal justice system that can give them some semblance of justice. This is a horrific crime. I mean, these were they're toddlers, 3 and 4 years old. And right from the beginning, from what I did do in my research, it sounded like they were covering up right from the beginning of this. I mean, it seems like 3 or 4 months before the actual reporting of the missing back in 2020. I believe it was December the 21st of 2020. They believed that the two individuals, the 3 and 4-year-old Orrin and Orson, were killed 3 months prior. So again, it's stomach turning.
This is what you're seeing on the screen. This is the picture of their arraignment today. They were both arraigned, and they were held without bail. They were charged with 2 counts of murder second degree, 2 counts of willful cruelty to a child, and falsely reporting an emergency incident. This is a horrific case. It made more horrific by the hope, I think, that a lot of you folks had following Duty Ron and following some other content providers on YouTube that were, and mostly Duty Ron. I give all the credit to Duty Ron. He was raising money. He paid out of his own money for a billboard on the side of the highway. And let's also realize that they were reported missing in California City. However, the murder took place apparently in Bakersfield. And that's why the Bakersfield police and the Bakersfield district attorney got involved. And that's why a grand jury was convened in Bakersfield and not California City. Because in fact, it appears that the homicide occurred in Bakersfield. I'm going to play a little bit of, this was right after they reported Orrin and Orson missing. And we commented back then about how horrific, and look, it's so easy after the fact. I said this back then. I said this day one. I don't like their body language. I don't like the fact that Trezell can't even look into the camera. I don't like the fact that the mothers can't stop moving around. The body language was horrific, and the story was also horrific. But I'm just going to play a little bit.
Can I just make one quick comment about jurisdiction? I just want to bring out a point. You talked about the 2 different locations, whether it was Bakersfield or the other area of California. We've had homicides that, we find a body in one location, and it was obvious that the person wasn't killed in that location. And as we do our investigation, we quickly find out that there was a crime scene in a different area. So then the jurisdiction would go to that area. I think that's an important point to point out. When they originally were reported, and then once they started to do the investigation, they revealed that they believed they were killed in this area of Bakersfield. So that's why the jurisdiction was taken over by that particular district attorney's office.
We felt so helpless, and seeing everybody out here really looking and helping out really means a lot.
So tell us what happened the night this kids
Okay.
From our yard.
It was cold. I was gonna make a fire. There's a lot of wood in this area right here next to our house. I opened up the back gate. I'm throwing wood, bringing it inside the house. My wife's inside. She was actually wrapping gifts, so we thought it was a good idea that our youngest two go outside and play with chalk on the back patio. Do not let them go on the dirt in the backyard. Keep them close. They was playing with chalk. And I came in the house. I saw them there. One house. I came back out. I didn't see them there. I immediately went back in, asked my wife, "Did you see the boys?" She said, "No, they should be outside playing with chalk." I said, "Well, I didn't see them." So I came back outside and I started searching my backyard. I searched the whole thing. I realized that I left the gate open and I panicked, came inside the house, searched the house, me and my wife. Once that hadn't panned out, I got in the van. I looked down the street, both directions. It was getting dark, getting cold, and I got in the van and I hit a bunch of corners. I went down this street. I turned my light on. I searched. I called their names. Talked to a gentleman on the street on the other side over there. He didn't see me. So then I came home and I told my wife, "We need to call the cops. It's getting dark and I need help. We gotta get going." So I called the cops. Cops came. First thing they did was tell us to stay in the house so they can get a hold of us. And they had us just sitting there and we wanted to keep searching. But everybody came out in droves. And I wanted to thank you guys that night, but we couldn't go outside.
The cops told us the best are out here.
The best are out here searching. And we appreciate it. And nobody ever we could never talk to anybody. And that was the issue.
We just want to thank everybody.
We really want to thank you guys.
Please, if anybody has seen them, please call, let somebody know.
Call the cops. Call California's city police department. Call them and let them know what you've seen, if you see anything. Our boys, they are going to be rambunctious, okay? They are going to be here in this area. And I really would like to go in the houses, but it's not because I want to invade people's privacy. I just want to know if make sure. That's it. Because I don't, go ahead, I'm sorry. If you got any questions.
Oh, no, you're good.
Oh, okay.
I was just going to say, this is the first time we're hearing from you guys, and I can't imagine what you guys are going through. I can't even fathom it. For you guys, for people who are thinking that there's some kind of foul play involved, we just spoke to the biological mother. She says she had a conversation with you guys, and that she thinks there's some kind of foul play involved. That she thinks you guys did something.
And that's understandable.
What's your response to that?
That's understandable. I would think the same thing.
Yep.
I mean, that's exactly.
Folks, as I said, I'm no body language expert. However, when someone's got their arms crossed in front of them, not even being interrogated, but just giving a presentation to the press, to me, that reeks of defensiveness, that you're being defensive.
He's taking a defensive posture for sure.
Yes, exactly. And the fact that Jacqueline, the wife, she can't stop moving. She's just rocking back and forth. Neither one of them can look straight ahead. They're looking down almost during this entire interview. And again, I'm no body language expert, but this is pretty telling.
How about the fact, Billy, that they were just accused of being involved in a nefarious the disappearance of these two children. That the biological mother, that reporter just said that she's accusing you of being involved in this, and their posture again. I mean, somebody just accused you of bringing harm or lying about two missing children, and you're not going to become raised up. That was odd to me, right there.
Yeah, just let's watch a little more of this and then we'll comment on it.
That's no. And that's all I want is to find our babies. That's it. And I talked to her this morning, and I really wanted to tell her that I am completely sorry, because we were entrusted with her children, and they came to us, and they became our children. We named them, and they are our children, and so we want them back. So please, if y'all could get back on what you guys are doing, we should be able to get a hold of somebody, but they took all of our tech, so they wanted to, I guess, just rule us out, which makes sense as part of the investigation. So that's pretty much it.
Have you guys, you talked to the police all last night?
Yes.
So you guys willfully gave them your
Everything.
technology,
Yes,
the car.
yes.
Did they get it? How did they get a search warrant? Did you
I-
guys?
I
Oh no.
Well, folks, one of the things that immediately after that, the police, when they conducted their investigation, they realized that Trezell only searched for the kids for about 10 minutes in his car, and they tracked where he actually went. And a 4-year-old and a 3-year-old with an open gate, and if he discovered it right away, they couldn't have gotten very far away, and just all of their conduct was really outrageous. But having said that, and having been involved in these missing person cases and these searches, the investigative part is so important, or else, you're spinning your wheels. Think of the thousands of man hours, the thousands of people that searched for these two boys, and the millions of people that were worried about them and cried about them, and hoped and prayed that they would be found. And these two all along know that these two boys are dead. And in fact, if you listen to the press conference with the district attorney, Cynthia Zimmer, they were killed 3 months before this night, the night that they reported them missing. So just incredible. But that's where police and good investigators, we pick up on this stuff. And, there's some good pictures of the boys right there. I mean, just horrific situation. And you look at these two, you talk about, even if you don't know what this case was about, you look at their body posture, and 100% a defensive posture they're taking right there.
Absolutely, Billy. And their mannerisms, and again, like I said, they were accused of being involved in some type of foul play. The reporter said that the biological mother thinks that they're involved after she spoke with them. That right there was very telling. And they didn't become upset about that. They go, oh, yeah, that's to be expected. They were almost too accommodating. And again, they said they gave up their electronics and stuff. Doesn't sound like they gave it up. It sounds like there was a subpoena involved. So again, very telling of how the investigation started. A lot of the steps that they took in the beginning. These were all very important things that were done right from the start. Again, like you just cited, Billy, it could show the location that he went on the search. It could bring other questions into play. And I'm sure that extensive interviews were done in and around the area where they lived to see if, when was the last time that these two little boys were seen by anybody, maybe relatives. There must be a tremendous amount of evidence investigation that went into this case. So I'm sure there's going to be a lot of evidence. I would like, if they believe the boys are deceased, if the remains were recovered, I think that would just really put a lid on any type of, outside outlier information regarding, maybe somebody else did it or something to that effect, or they're still alive. So I would definitely want to have the body or the remains recovered. But again, it's not impossible to try a prosecution. And as the DA Zimmer said,
Duty Ron is in the chat. Duty Ron, thank you so much for the $10 super chat. He says, where are the boys? Thank you, Bill and Phil, for this coverage. justice will be served. And there's no one that did a better job with this case than Duty
Thank
Ron.
you,
Not
Duty
only
Ron.
he went above and beyond. He spoke to the police chief. He spoke to a local reporter. He's got people on the ground that he's talking to. So he was always on the pulse of this investigation. Folks, this is Police Off the Cuff, Real Crime Stories. And if you like this channel, our presentations are from the inside, a police perspective. Please subscribe to us on our YouTube. Hit that subscribe button, ring that bell, give us a thumbs up. And if you want to support us, we have a Patreon with 3 different levels. And the folks you see in the chat with the green font, they're part of our channel members, our YouTube family. We appreciate all you guys so much. So right now, that's a good point, Phil. One of the things that they'll want to do, and this will go post prosecution, of course, is to find the bodies of Orrin and Orson West. But now you have to realize that if Trezell and Jacqueline give that up, it's a equivalent of pleading guilty. So perhaps after a trial and after hopefully they found guilty, that maybe in some kind of plea bargain, maybe they will tell where the boys' bodies are so we can have some closure with this case, that the boys can get a proper burial, that people that love these boys can have closure. And hopefully the trial itself will open up a lot of eyes as to what actually occurred here. And I'm sure the horrors that occurred during this case, when we're hearing in the indictment that possibly the other children were taking part in the torture of these kids, just horrific.
Totally horrific, Billy. I would venture to say that based on the indictments and stuff, now discovery will be turned over to the defense attorneys, depending on what involvement they think the mother or the father had in the actual crime itself, causing the death of these 2 young boys. The one that might be less culpable, the attorney may want to approach the district attorney's office and enter into some type of cooperation agreement. I don't think we're talking about no jail time, obviously, but I don't know. Maybe if they're facing 30 or 40 years in jail, maybe a chance for parole at some point, depending on what their culpability is. So I think that what might be one of the avenues that the defense attorneys may want to take. Again, if the husband was mostly responsible, maybe the wife can turn on him or vice versa. And, providing the location where these 2 little boys' remains are might bring a little bit more closure to the biological family, the biological parents. I don't know what the reason or the what the situation was that they were removed and placed with these 2 savages. But again, that's still a mother, whatever her issues are, it's still a father, whatever their issues were. So maybe some justice can be brought for them, and these 2 little boys could get a proper burial.
Richella Pranzo, thank you for that. Their real names are Sincere and Classic. The West changed their names when they got custody. I think most people over Richella know them as Orrin and Orson West. So we're going to just stay with that just to avoid the confusion. But thank you very much for apprising us of that. I know Duty Ron would sometimes refer to them as Sincere and Classic, but most of the paperwork, even the court documents, are saying Orrin and Orson West. So who knows if their names were ever legally changed, one of the things that this sheds light on, and always seems to shed light on it, is the whole child welfare system. How fit of parents were these 2? I asked early on in this investigation, what does Trezell do for a living? It didn't seem like he had a job. How is he supporting 6 kids? They had 4 other kids, 2 biological, 2 other adopted, and Orrin and Orson. So how was it possible that they adopted 2 kids? It didn't seem like he had any source of income, yet they owned a home. I mean, baffling to me. Those things don't add up to me. And what it says to me is that maybe he's making money in some criminal activity, because it doesn't seem like he has a job that he goes to every day. So those questions I would have for child welfare. How come this was never checked out? How come were they ever investigated? Did they have a social worker assigned to this family? I mean, it just, I remember at one time when I was in Manhattan North Homicide, we went to a case in the housing project of a 5-year-old girl who was dead. 5-year-old girls don't belong getting dead. And we did our investigation. We noticed she had a propofol patch on her neck. And we said to the mother, who turned out to be not an adopted mother, a foster care mother that gets paid to adopt this child. She goes, "Oh, she was having a little headache." She was having a little headache? And where'd you get that patch from? "Oh, it's my friend's." You put a narcotic patch that's meant for real severe pain for an adult on a 5-year-old child? Yes. And that's what killed the child. We were like baffled that in fact, my detective was so upset that he insisted to the district attorney she be charged with murder second degree. And she was not. The district attorney didn't feel that the charge fit. And I believe she got some real low level of manslaughter. But just the stupidity of something like that. And with these two, again, in the same vein, I question, how were these two allowed to adopt 4 children? And it didn't seem like they had any real source of income.
Billy, in the foster care system and, in the family court system in New York, we just recently had a case where foster children were living in a home, and the male in the home was actually a pimp, was pimping off the children. They were teenage girls. There needs to be welfare checks in these cases. Now, they're saying that these two were adoptive parents. Even in an adoptive situation, there really should be some type of welfare checks. I mean, they might put on the happy face when they're first, interdicted by the adoptive, the welfare system or the social workers. But again, you need to do some follow-ups, unannounced follow-ups, and maybe speaking to the other children in the home could have precluded something like this. I just think that this case is probably going to shine a spotlight on that. And maybe these other cases the one that I was talking about in New York recently, where, the foster care system, if you take in a foster child in the New York area, New York City, I believe it's, like maybe $1,200 or $1,500 a month that they give you to take care of this child. So that may be how, a person like this Trezell, I believe his name is, was able to not work or whatever. I don't know if there was some funding coming from the local family court system, but again, there really needs to be some intensive scrutiny on foster homes and adoptive homes when you have situations like this. This is something that probably could have been avoided. I don't want a Monday morning quarterback, but when you look at all the details of what was going on, it doesn't sound like these kids were killed in a fit of rage. It sounds like this was abuse that was taking place over a period of time.
Yeah, 100%. Someone in the chat actually corrected me, and thank you so much. My senility is showing. I said propofol patch. It was actually a fentanyl patch, and you're 100% correct. I couldn't remember. I was thinking propofol is it's a narcotic they give you when you have surgery.
Yeah, that's an anesthetic.
This was a fentanyl, but I mean, fentanyl is quite powerful, and and also if it's given for someone for pain, an adult with a prescription, it doesn't belong on the neck of a 5-year-old girl that's having a little headache. Just think of the stupidity of that. Mickey Mantle, thank you so much for the $20 super chat. Thanks, Bill and Phil. Always an inspiration. Thank you guys so much for supporting us here. These horrific child abuse cases. I mean, I've seen cases where we had a case one time in Manhattan North Homicide where a little 1 or 2 year old drowned in a bucket of vomit that the mother was drunk and sick, and the baby actually fell into the bucket. It was just, you just can't even make this stuff up. It's so horrific. And those are the things that you take with you the rest of your life. I've had cases where mothers who were told not to sleep in the bed with an infant rolled over on the infant and suffocated the baby. Yeah. And this was one had a second time. It happened to this one woman twice, and she was told never to do it again. She did it again. So you cannot make this stuff up. This is the horrific stuff that we in law enforcement see. And thank God, there's these people that, and this district attorney, Cynthia Zimmer, I was so impressed by her.
Yes, very good.
She gave such a great presentation. And that this investigation, it's not over. It's not over, this investigation. It's not over until you hear the jury read the guilty verdicts on these two. And so they got to keep working on this case, present the strongest possible case they can. And of course, if they possibly can, recover the bodies of Sincere and Classic, if you prefer, or Orrin and Orson West.
Bill, I just want to make a quick point about that patch you were talking about, that fentanyl pouch. When narcotics are dispensed by a doctor or a pharmacist, they take in the body weight of a person. So the mass, an adult that might be 150, 200 pounds, the dose that's given to that person, a small 20 or 30 or 40-pound child would definitely be way more affected by this narcotic, specifically of fentanyl. It's very, very powerful stuff. So again, I know it sounds like a public service address or announcement, but you can't give the same dosage for any kind of a pain or a narcotic for an adult to a child. It's very, very dangerous. And
that's why a prescription is written for the person who it is intended to.
Exactly.
Philly, that reminds me, when you said the weight of something, that reminds me of a sort of a humorous story. Andre the Giant, the gigantic wrestler, who weighed, I think, 450 to 500 pounds. He was having surgery, and the anesthesiologist had no idea how much anesthesia to give him. So he brought him into his office and he said, when you drink, how much beer does it take before you feel even a buzz? He goes, about a case before I first start feeling a buzz.
Wow.
So that gave him an idea of how much narcotic he needed to get to put Andre the Giant. Has nothing to do with this case.
No, but it's a good point, Billy, because you're talking about somebody that was like 7 feet tall and 400 or 500 pounds, as opposed to a normal, an average human that's, let's say, 5'8" or 5'10" and 180 pounds. It's going to take maybe double or triple amount to knock that person out. So that's one of the good points. And again, not to get off the subject of this horrible, horrible case, but I think that these are things that, listen, somebody hears that a person that thought they were doing something, kid had a headache or whatever, and puts this silly patch on with fentanyl and kills the kid, God forbid, it could be prevented.
Sure. Single Mama 4, first of all, great to see you back. I haven't seen you in a while. Police Off the Cuff, you guys rock. Thank you so much. You rock too, Single Mama 4. Thanks for all your support. Pete Pranzo, Harlem Raiders. Thank you, Pete. All your support. You and Richella, you guys have been with us since the very beginning.
The Pranzos love them.
That's right. Karen Newsom, they was crooked to let them foster and adopt. They aren't about to check in on them. Look, there's a lot of things wrong with the foster care system, not just in Bakersfield, not just in California City, but nationally, because they don't put enough money into it, So the old adage, you get what you pay for. These social workers, they're overworked. Some of them have 100, 200 clients, and then you want to hold them accountable to the letter of the law. Tough to do when they're overworked, because they can't possibly do their best job when they have that many clients to visit. But at the same time, we have to point the finger maybe at the government. Maybe you got to get a bigger budget for this,
Good point, Billy. I mean, I'm sure these people are overworked. And then they may have a caseload. I don't know what an average caseload would be for a child care representative, but let's say they have 30 cases, but then a call comes in about a specific individual in a home. That's going to take precedent, and whatever that investigator or that social worker was going to do that day would be put on the back burner, because they're going to run out and try and interdict something that could be very dangerous. Again, there's priorities in these situations, and there really should be a limit on how many cases or investigations that a social worker can handle. There really should be. And again, we're talking dollars and cents here now. The budgets go up. And I believe that, with all the money that the politicians squander, that should become priority number one. The children of each city, county, state, whatever it is, should really be number one. I mean, we spend money on a lot of ridiculous things. Shouldn't that come first?
Absolutely. So, Milwaukee Civilian, thank you for the 4.99 super chat.
Thank you.
Rose, 1033. I do not mean to disparage foster care at all.
Absolutely.
I'm an advocate and an ally of them. All I'm saying is they need to pay them more money, and they need to have bigger budgets, and they need to give them less work, less amount of clients, because they can't possibly do their best job when they have just too many cases for a single person to handle.
You know, Billy, she makes a great point. Rose, 1033. There's thousands of children in foster care system, and there's only a small amount of these type of cases. But I just think that one is too many, and obviously that's the point we're trying to make. We're not trying to disparage any people. You know, it takes a special kind of a family to take in children to help them in a time of need. So, you know, kudos to those people. And again, we're not trying to disparage, but I think we could all be in agreement that if one child is placed in a vicious, I mean, the descriptions that we heard, vicious beatings, it sounds like, you know, and then wind up being deceased, one is definitely too many.
No, absolutely. You know something, folks, in my job, and not when I was in homicide, I was on patrol. I was a sergeant 22 years out of my 27 years. So you might say, wow, yeah, just because I couldn't pass the lieutenant's test. So I stayed a sergeant for 22 years. But you know something, sometimes that's what you were meant to do in life. And for me, I was meant to do that. And look, I wound up in one of the greatest units you could be in, and that was Manhattan North Homicide Squad. If I would have made lieutenant, I would have been mostly an administrative job, and that wasn't me. But well, let's get off me for a second. I'm just saying, folks, one of my jobs as a sergeant, a patrol sergeant, was to go to these potential child abuse locations and, if necessary, remove the kids. And it was my decision as a police sergeant, a sergeant of police, to make the decision. And the word we used was imminent danger for the child's mental or physical well-being. You know, and that could be determined in numerous ways. If there wasn't enough food in the house, if they weren't getting enough care, they weren't getting enough emotional care, if they were being physically abused. And I've removed lots of kids, you know, and it was never an easy call, and it was not anything I ever took lightly, and I never wanted to take someone's kids from them. But to me, the well-being of the kid overrode the protests of the parents as I took the kid away.
You know, Billy, in my career, I always had a soft spot in my heart, obviously for children and the elderly. Those two things, when I would see a child being abused or an elderly person being abused, it would really raise me up and my blood would begin to boil. And I would want to do anything and everything that I can to help that person. Obviously, everybody in between too as well. But, you know, when you become extra sensitive when it's a child or if it's a person that's elderly, that I guess they're at a handicap, so to speak. And, you know, I was always for the underdog. So that's the way I always tried to, do my job, maybe just a little extra oomph when it was a child or an elderly person. But, you know, these two on the screen right now, they're disgusting. They are the epitome of adoptive parents or foster care parents. And let's hope that with the case going forward that justice is served. And again, we're going to find out more of the details as time goes on. With discovery and with the hearings and the trial going forward. It's probably not going to be very pleasant stuff, but I think, you know, we need to hear it, and hopefully justice will be served in a very swift and orderly fashion with these two.
You know, Trezell said something very interesting when we played that little video of when they first reported the boys missing. And he said something almost exactly like what Don Wells said. He said, oh, I wish I could go inside people's houses to see if the kids were in their houses. Is that, you know, when we talk about a Freudian slip or a guilty statement, is that where that's coming from? It seems like it is, because he's making a guilty statement and trying to cover his tracks by pointing the guilt elsewhere.
Yeah, that seems like a self-serving type of statement, so to speak. And Billy, I'm so glad that you brought up the Summer Wells case, because I really don't want to let that case go. That's a horrible case that she's been missing for quite some time now. And again, we don't know what's going on behind the scenes. And I would hope and pray that there's going to be some type of breaking the case, whether it with the help of God that she's found alive. But if not, we want to see whoever's responsible for her disappearance to be brought to justice as well. And that statement that he made, that does sound like a self-serving statement. Again, you have to try and, use a little psychology, put yourself in the mind of a person that's guilty and why they would be saying the thing that they would be saying. And again, one of the major red flags with me in that little press conference that you showed with Trezell and Jacqueline, him being accused of foul play and not becoming, I would become enraged if somebody accused me of being involved in foul play of a little 3 and 4 year old brothers. So again, that was the red flag for me.
Folks, just a little recap. Jacqueline and Trezell were arraigned today. They were arraigned for 2 counts of murder, 2 counts of willful cruelty to a child, and falsely reporting an emergency incident. And they were held without bail. They were both indicted by a grand jury. The grand jury investigation has been going on for a while now. And the district attorney in this case does not wish to let any of the information get out because they want to try this case in court, not in the court of public opinion or not in the press. So she was very cool. Her press conference was really excellent. And she gave a lot of credit to both the Bakersfield police chief as well as the California City police chief. They both got up and spoke to the press and to the audience. And you can imagine that they've been living with this case for, I believe, over 16 months. And so they're folks, the people that work for both of those departments, they suffered through this. They all had hope that these boys would be recovered alive. And the hope was dispelled with this press conference, with the information that something, I'm glad that they allowed the information to get out. Cynthia Zimmer put it out there. If this was the FBI, they would hold this close to the vest till the case was over. And it sort of allows the public and everyone else to take a big sigh of not really relief because it's not closure, but the fact that the hope is over as far as finding these boys alive.
Billy, I wonder if the $120,000 reward played into, any of the facts of this case. I know that as of February the 4th, 2021, which is just about a year ago, a little more than a year ago, the reward was up to $120,000. That sometimes will, help people come forward with information. I was involved in a case not long ago where a $50,000 reward was offered for information on a specific perpetrator. And sure enough, 2 people came forward and they both collected $25,000 apiece, which also led to the successful prosecution of that person for a murder. So again, money does sometimes open people up to cooperation. So I guess that will be something we'll find out down the line.
Melissa Amoroso, have they said how they know that those beautiful little babies were deceased 3 months prior to reporting them missing? No, the DA wasn't offering that up. However, they had 4 other kids in that household. Those kids were brought in by foster care. Those kids were spoken to by foster care. Those kids were spoken to by law enforcement. I'm pretty sure that's how they found out about it. And that evidence, I'm sure, was they also have conducted search warrants, electronic eavesdropping warrants. So they connect the dots together, and I'm pretty sure that their information is accurate.
I'm sure that their behavior changing may be part of it. Whatever information they garnered from those other children. Investigators go through painstaking interviews and information that they gather, and then they come to a conclusion. And they seem pretty specific about the 3 months. So, maybe that's the last time that these children were maybe to a doctor's appointment or seen by other people. Again, they probably narrowed it down after extensive interviewing and information that they gathered in the investigation.
Yeah, the thing was is that one of the ways they also eliminated the California City home, uh, they sort of closed the door on that they were ever missing from there, is that they were never ever seen at that home. Ever. There was no evidence that anyone saw them in that home. So that became like, something that was, they tried to report them missing from there. And just think of that. That's a guilty thing to do too. Let's keep them far away from where it actually happened. And let's tell the police that it happened here instead of, I believe, Bakersfield is like 90 miles away from California City. So all of that information, investigating, doing a checklist, connecting the dots, doing all your interviews, I'm sure that they know what the truth is.
Yeah, and I think it would be safe to say that the murders occurred in the jurisdiction of Bakersfield, obviously. And, as time goes on, again, through discovery and through the trial, we're going to find out just how they came to these conclusions. We may not find out today. Again, kudos to that district attorney. She seemed very competent, like I said earlier, and I'm sure that we'll get the answers to a lot of the questions. It's just unfortunate. This is I love to do the podcast with you, Bill, but this is a day that we really don't want to be doing this. We'd rather be having dinner with our families than doing this specific show about such a horrible thing. But again, I think it does need to be profiled and highlighted. So here we are, and it's just it's not a good case. It's a horrible ending. So.
No,
But at least
absolutely.
we're gonna know for sure what happened.
I just want to say before we close, folks, again, I want to give tremendous kudos to Duty Ron, who unselfishly followed this case for 16 months, contributed his own money for that billboard on the side of the road, find our boys. And he kept this case alive, And believe it or not, sometimes by doing that, you keep law enforcement really motivated, and other people involved in this case, other journalists, keep them motivated to keep this case on the front burner. These two little precious boys that we now found out, in the words of District Attorney Zimmer, that they are in fact deceased, and we found that out in the press conference. Philly, final words.
Yeah, hats off to Duty Ron. That's the guy that he is. He is truly a good man, a good human being, and he's retired from the NYPD and still manages to do community service, so to speak. And God bless him. I just wanted to give a quick plug for something that I'm going to be doing on this Saturday at 9 p.m. on the Oxygen Network. There's going to be a show called New York Homicide, where a relative of mine was killed in 2016. I do an interview on that episode, and the guy was eventually arrested and brought to justice. So if any of our subscribers want to check it out, it's on the Oxygen Network this Saturday, 9 p.m. Again, God bless those two little boys. Let's get justice for them. Let's hope that these two animals that they are given the maximum, convicted and given the maximum jail term. And again, God bless their little souls.
Absolutely. Again, shout out to Duty Ron for doing all this great work, and shout out to this district attorney, Cynthia Zimmer, who just did an amazing job. All her
Absolutely.
investigators, the California City Police, the Bakersfield Police, and even though this is not the closure that we all wanted, the case is now we're going to get justice in this case, and that's so important. So, folks, from Police Off the Cuff, my name is Bill Cannon, and with my co-host Phil Grimaldi. Have a safe night, and thanks for tuning in.
Stay safe, everyone.
One episode just ain't enough.